Major screw up at the Houston Police Department that may have ultimately cost two people their lives. Now, it was a deadly shooting that was supposed to be supported by a verifiable confidential informant and true and accurate affidavit. Now we know the botched drug raid on January 28th that left Dennis Tuttle and Regina Nicholas dead has all kinds of problems. 5 officers were injured, including 4 who were shot during the incident. Now, Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo says the officer in charge of the case may have lied to get the no-knock warrant to go into the couple's home in southeast Houston. The police chief says that case officer could face criminal charges. This is while a couple is dead. Joining us here on The Factor Uncensored to talk about this tonight and to sort through this mess is attorney Randall Kallinen, who also works with the Coalition for Justice, attorney Oliver Brown, attorney Jason Rowe, and retired HPD Sergeant Kenneth Perkins. We want to welcome you all to The Factor. What a mess we have here. It couldn't have turned out worse. Many people saw this when we walked into this case saying there are problems with this case, there are problems with this warrant, this affidavit, and now we're hearing it come to fruition, Oliver.
Look, you said it's a screw up. This is an F up, okay? First of all, you had an officer lying about a confidential informant, okay? Followed by, there was multiple problems with the actual affidavit. That's just the, I guess, the surface of the iceberg. But what makes it even worse is that the union president gets on TV and starts talking about that we're putting targets on their back and they're putting targets on civilians' back just so that they can get some type of drug raid. I'm outraged about this. I think it endangers our officers, it endangers our citizens, and that we're allowing people to work with the police department without any type of punishment.
One of the things I did today, I went and talked with Joe Gamaldi, the president of the Houston Police Officers Union, and asked him, did he want to apologize to many of the activists out there who he said may have put a target on the backs of police officers, and he just did not answer that question. In fact, he repeated himself on a prepared statement at least a half-dozen times, which was unusual for him in my experience with him. Randall Kallinen, you work with many of those activists out there, yes. And when you heard that comment and now they're not willing to give an apology.
Well, to have secret files on someone, that's some old-time CIA, FBI stuff where they keep track of people in the civil rights movement and so forth. So it's still even going on today, and threatening people like that chills their freedom of expression and chills their freedom of assembly. And I believe it's highly unconstitutional.
Kenneth Perkins, you're retired from the Houston Police Department. When you heard what developed today and how far it went left instead of as they said it went, your thoughts on that?
You know, Isiah, to be honest with you, my heart dropped. I almost felt like crying because I just couldn't fathom the idea of these officers doing what allegedly have said to be said. You know, because there's a lot of good officers out here, as well as good citizens out here. Yep. And it just hurt me so bad, I just couldn't believe the allegation that was alleged against what transpired. But I do know some of these things have happened. I know some of these things will probably continue to happen. I even spoke out against some of these things during my tenure.
I recall that, absolutely.
But no one would hear me, and they wouldn't believe me. But it's kind of twofold for me because I'm a citizen on one hand, but I'm a police officer 24 hours a day. But I just want to do the right thing, and I believe we should do the right thing. If it caused police officers to fall down the wayside, been, you know, charged with some offense, then let's let it be what it is. You know, let the chips fall where they may. But we just can't go be judgmental and just accuse everybody just because of one person. But I do believe that's that there should be reprimandation from the top, from the mayor's office to the chief, to the lieutenants, to the captain. Someone else needs to be held accountable, not just one person.
Not just the officers on the street.
Not just officers on the street. Where was the checks and balances? You have to know what's in the body of these warrants, and are they reasonable? Get the information from the CI, is it credible? So these things that really bother me, it really hurt me, Isiah.
All right. Now, let's bring Jason Rowe into this. For the family, they've lost 2 family members, possibly by mistake, possibly by mistake? Should the family be looking for a civil attorney, and what legal recourse would they have in a case like this against the city of Houston?
Yes, they should be looking for a civil attorney at this time, and they should probably retain them as soon as possible. But part of it's going to depend on what the investigation does unveil. I would not be surprised if one of the grand juries that's currently impaneled may be starting to look at this investigation. I think you're going to want to see some of the criminal facts come out from the criminal investigation that's going to proceed on these officers to see what happens. We have a lot of good police officers, and a lot of these narc agents are doing a dangerous job. But when these no-knock warrants go in with no body cameras as a policy, then that shows that there's a larger problem in the HPD.
All right.
It's not a mistake. It's not. Lying on an affidavit is not a mistake. That's an intentional act. I will not allow that to be characterized as a mistake. Okay? So let's state the facts to the Houston Police Union. It's not a mistake to make a lie, and it needs to stop. I see it in police reports every day.
What kind of changes should this bring about at HPD when it comes to policy, procedure, and how they handle cases like this down the road?
First of all, we need to get rid of no-knock warrants. Let's get rid of it. I just talked about this, earlier this week?
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, look, barring you're going after El Chapo, we don't need to do no-knock warrants. That man that is dead now was defending his home, which is his constitutional right, against government tyranny, okay? So now all of a sudden, he's some type of thug, and the police want to make him out to be that. I'm outraged. I'm outraged about this. There's 2 innocent civilians that are dead for no reason. Because, no, they're dead for one reason, a cop that lies. And these cops lie. I see it every day in criminal defense. They lie. They lie in police reports. The law allows us not to bring in police reports as evidence against them. It should.
Jason?
Like you said, there needs to be major changes. But again, I would emphasize the body cameras. I think these are narc officers going in undercover. Yes. These are not people going in uniform, and these no-knock warrants allow them to enter the premises before they're actually announcing themselves. And as a policy, HPD does not have them wear body cameras, when this is one of the most dangerous situations an officer can be doing. And for the protection of the good officers itself, if these officers end up shooting someone, they should want that body camera on to be able to show exactly what happened.
Thank you.
Body cameras protect the good officers, and they hurt the bad, and this is a case where they could have come in handy.
Randall, when we talk about the officer who allegedly lied in this case, and we look at his body of work and cases that he's done in the past, should there be a full review of everything he's put his hands on?
Well, certainly in every instance where he did the same thing, where he signed a warrant for, or signed an affidavit for a search warrant, all of those cases should be looked at in case those were illegal searches. But there is something I wanted to point out. If a person is committing a crime such as illegal break-in and entry, which this would be if there was no legal reason, and someone dies, that's called murder. And that happens every day, not every day, but it happens all the time in Houston. So someone has died in the course of a crime, that's murder, and we ought to be looking at charges of murder for some of these officers.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Kenneth Perkins, retired HPD Sergeant, what changes do you think there need to be when it comes to policies and procedures at HPD and accountability there?
You know, Isiah, I tell you, and I think we spoke about this many years ago, people was against citizens being part of the review board. I think that the policies and procedures and Texas Criminal Code procedures, even as far as the Texas Local Government Code and even the Penal Code, a lot of these things need to be revisited. We need checks and balances 24/7 a day, an hour. You know, we just need 24/7, man, because things like this have really plagued me. But for years I've been saying the same thing over and over again. But to be a part of an organization that I truly love and that I truly believe is, you know, just doing the right thing, sometimes I was getting targeted, even though I was in law enforcement, and I'm just trying to do the right thing. But, man, I tell you, we need to hold these people accountable from the top to the bottom.